Sherikov accepted the briefcase of papers from his armed technician. "Thanks." He pushed his chair back and glanced thoughtfully around the council chamber. "Is everybody ready to hear what I have to say?" "We're ready," Margaret Duff answered. The council members sat alertly around the table. At the far end, Reinhardt and Dixon watched uneasily as the big Pole removed papers from his briefcase and carefully examined them. "To begin, I recall to you the original work behind the FTL bomb. Jamison Hedge was the first human to propel an object at a speed greater than light. As you know, that object diminished in length and gained in mass as it moved toward the light speed. When it reached that speed, it vanished. It ceased to exist in our terms. Having no length, it could not occupy space. It rose to a different order of existence. When Hedge tried to bring the object back, an explosion occurred. Hedge was killed and all his equipment was destroyed. The force of the blast was beyond calculation. Hedge had placed his observation ship many millions of miles away. It was not far enough, however. Originally, he had hoped his drive might be used for space travel, but after his death, the principle was abandoned. That is, until Icarus. I saw the possibilities of a bomb, an incredibly powerful bomb, to destroy Centaurus and all the Empire's forces. The reappearance of Icarus would mean the annihilation of their system. As Hedge had shown, the object would re-enter space already occupied by matter, and the cataclysm would be beyond belief. "But Icarus never came back!" Reinhardt cried. "Cole altered the wiring so the bomb kept on going. It's probably still going." "Wrong," Sherikov boomed. "The bomb did reappear, but it didn't explode." Reinhardt reacted violently. "You mean—" "The bomb came back, dropping below the FTL speed as soon as it entered the star Proxima, but it did not explode. There was no cataclysm. It reappeared and was absorbed by the sun, turned into gas at once." "Why didn't it explode?" Dixon demanded. "Because Thomas Cole solved Hedge's problem. He found a way to bring the FTL object back into this universe without collision, without an explosion. The variable man found what Hedge was after." The whole council was on its feet. A growing murmur filled the chamber, a rising pandemonium breaking out on all sides. "I don't believe it," Reinhardt gasped. It isn't possible. If Cole solved Hedge's problem, that would mean—" He broke off, staggered. "Faster than light drive can now be used for space travel," Sherikov continued, waving the noise down. "As Hedge intended. My men have studied the photographs of the control turret. They don't know how or why yet, but we have complete records of the turret. We can duplicate the wiring as soon as the laboratories have been repaired." Comprehension was gradually beginning to settle over the room. "Then it'll be possible to build FTL ships," Margaret Duff murmured, dazed. "And if we can do that—" "When I showed him the control turret, Cole understood its purpose. Not my purpose, but the original purpose Hedge had been working toward. Cole realized Icarus was actually an incomplete spaceship, not a bomb at all. He saw what Hedge had seen, an FTL space drive. He set out to make Icarus work." "We can go beyond Centaurus," Dixon muttered, his lips twisted. "Then the war was trivial. We can leave the Empire completely behind. We can go beyond the galaxy." "The whole universe is open to us," Sherikov agreed. "Instead of taking over an antiquated empire, we have the entire cosmos to map and explore. God's total creation." Margaret Duff got to her feet and moved slowly toward the great stellar maps that towered above them at the far end of the chamber. She stood for a long time, gazing up at the myriad suns, the legions of systems, awed by what she saw. "Do you suppose he realized all this?" she asked suddenly. "What we can see here on these maps?" "Thomas Cole is a strange person," Sherikov said, half to himself. "Apparently he has a kind of intuition about machines, the way things are supposed to work. An intuition more in his hands than in his head. A kind of genius, such as a painter or pianist has. Not a scientist. He has no verbal knowledge about things, no semantic references. He deals with the things themselves, directly. I doubt very much if Thomas Cole understood what would come about. He looked into the globe, the control turret. He saw unfinished wiring and relays. He saw a job half done, an incomplete machine. Something to be fixed, Margaret Duff put in. Something to be fixed. Like an artist, he saw his work ahead of him. He was interested in only one thing, turning out the best job he could with the skill he possessed. For us, that skill has opened up a whole universe, endless galaxies and systems to explore, worlds without end, unlimited, untouched worlds. Reinhardt got unsteadily to his feet. We better get to work, start organizing construction teams, exploration crews. We'll have to reconvert from war production to ship designing, begin the manufacture of mining and scientific instruments for survey work. That's right, Margaret Duff said. She looked reflectively up at him. But you're not going to have anything to do with it. Reinhardt saw the expression on her face. His hand flew to his gun, and he backed quickly toward the door. Dixon leaped up and joined him. Get back, Reinhardt shouted. Margaret Duff signaled, and a phalanx of government troops closed in around the two men. Grim-faced, efficient soldiers with magnetic grapples ready. Reinhardt's blaster wavered, toward the council members sitting shocked in their seats, and toward Margaret Duff, straight at her blue eyes. Reinhardt's features were distorted with insane fear. Get back! Don't anybody come near me, or she'll be the first to go! Peter Sherikov slid from the table, and with one great stride swept his immense bulk in front of Reinhardt. His huge black furred fist rose in a smashing arc. Reinhardt sailed against the wall, struck with ringing force, and then slid slowly to the floor. The government troops threw their grapples quickly around him and jerked him to his feet. His body was frozen rigid. Blood dripped from his mouth. He spat bits of tooth. His eyes glazed over. Dixon stood, dazed, mouth open, uncomprehending as the grapples closed around his arms and legs. Reinhardt's gun skidded to the floor as he was yanked toward the door. One of the elderly council members picked the gun up and examined it curiously. He laid it carefully on the table. Fully loaded, he murmured, ready to fire. Reinhardt's battered face was dark with hate. I should have killed all of you, all of you! An ugly sneer twisted across his shredded lips. If I could get my hands loose! You won't, Margaret Duff said. You might as well not even bother to think about it. She signaled to the troops, and they pulled Reinhardt and Dixon roughly out of the room, two dazed figures, snarling and resentful. For a moment the room was silent. Then the council members shuffled nervously in their seats, beginning to breathe again. Sherikov came over and put his big paw on Margaret Duff's shoulder. Are you all right, Margaret? She smiled faintly. I'm fine, thanks. Sherikov touched her soft hair briefly. Then he broke away and began to pack up his briefcase busily. I'll have to go. I'll get in touch with you later. Where are you going? She asked hesitantly. Can't you stay and... I have to get back to the Urals. Sherikov grinned at her over his bushy black beard as he headed out of the room. Some very important business to attend to. Thomas Cole was sitting up in bed when Sherikov came to the door. Most of his awkward, hunched-over body was sealed in a thin envelope of transparent, airproof plastic. Two robot attendants whirred ceaselessly at his side, their leads contacting his pulse, blood pressure, respiration, body temperature. Cole turned a little as the huge Pole tossed down his briefcase and seated himself on the window ledge. "How are you feeling?" Sherikov asked him. "Better. You see, we've quite advanced therapy. Your burns should be healed in a few months." "How's the war coming?" "The war is over." Cole's lips moved. "Icarus?" "Icarus went as expected. As you expected." Sherikov leaned toward the bed. "Cole, I promised you something. I mean to keep my promise as soon as you're well enough." "To return me to my own time?" "That's right. It's a relatively simple matter now that Reinhardt has been removed from power. You'll be back home again, back in your own time, your own world. We can supply you with some disks of platinum or something of the kind to finance your business. You'll need a new fix-it truck, tools, and clothes. A few $1,000s ought to do it." Cole was silent. "I've already contacted Histo Research," Sherikov continued. "The time